So does Pine Knob, what does it mean as an artist to play Pine Knob? I know as a fan, I live 2 miles from Pine Knob, what it means to me. But Lawrence, what does it mean to play Pine Knob?
It's funny, it's one of the first venues that I was managed by the same, prior to joining Styx for 14 years, I was managed by the same people that managed Rush. And I remember when I started playing amphitheaters in Toronto, there was a couple of them there, that Ray, our manager, said to me, the one you're going to love is called Pine Knob. It's in Detroit. It's really it's the amphitheater that all these new ones that are popping, this is like 1985, these new ones are kind of modeling themselves after. So I always wanted to play there. So 26 years ago when I joined Styx, I think in the first year was when the first time we got to play there. And I absolutely, it is the primo venue of the summer amphitheater. That is the quintessential one. I believe it's the original, according to Ray it was. And it's just got a vibe to it that's infectious. That's the best way I can put it.
I've told everybody this, and the Saturday night, you guys with Kevin Cronin, Don Felder as well, the Brotherhood of Rock. I've told JY this many times. We gravitate to hardworking bands, and I have never seen you not give 110%. In your mind, when you go on stage, are you aware of the work ethic of the band? I mean, are you aware of I don't know, is commitment the right word, or obligation, or responsibility? I don't know where I'm going with that, but hopefully you understand what I'm asking.
No, all those words, all those adjectives you just applied are 100% applicable to this situation. We're kind of a band of, first of all, it's a band of extroverts. Let's start with that, okay? And but we also feel there is a responsibility now in playing this music as faithfully as we possibly can because it's it's proven to last over decades and decades, and so there is a responsibility to give it as faithful and as meaningful a performance as we possibly can. So in a weird way, we take it seriously, quite honestly. And none of us wants to be the guy that lets down the other guys that are on that stage, or definitely, even more importantly, the audience that have gone out of their way to come and see us. And we're all fans of rock as well. I know how hard it is to get to a rock show, but every time I do, it's every bit is worth the effort. And when I'm given the kind of privileged position, quite frankly, of being in front of thousands of people who have high expectations, we want to exceed those expectations if possible, and that's why the band we just try to make the show better every single year and every night. Actually, that we're out there, because you never know how long the gods of rock are going to allow this to continue.
Right? One day at a time. We tell you. But doing the Grand Illusion in its entirety.
Yeah,
Did you sit down? I'm a vinyl generation. My son's 22 and he's a vinyl guy. It's
yeah,
interesting to watch him. Did
yeah.
you sit down before this tour? And I know you've done all these songs, but to actually drop a needle on it, did you listen to it its entirety?
Yes, in fact, I've done it a couple of times since the tour even began because
Really?
well, just as what we were just referring to, you need to just double check that you're definitely hitting all the right, the bits that have to be done in a certain way, to keep it as authentic as possible, and still to add that extra element of live energy to it, which is different from a recording, and so that's a bit of a balancing act. And it's funny what you say about, okay, it's very true and telling what you say about your son being 22 years of age. On any given night, half the audience are under 40 years of age. So they weren't even born when the biggest records of the classic rock era were made, and yet they have been drawn to them, and they personalize them into their lives as if they're concurrent with their time on the planet, just as it was for us. So it's important for me to kind of go and listen to that stuff again, and just to kind of remind myself of all the various, sections and how one song flows into the other very seamlessly, and to get that into your head as to how because we're playing the album in its entirety, Grand Illusion, how that should flow as an arc of music. It's important to remind yourself.
So what did you hear that maybe you hadn't heard before? Something that jumped out at you with some of the tracks?
Yeah, things like okay, so I was handed the responsibility of doing the middle kind of Barker section of Superstars,
Okay.
how to deliver that and give it an extra bit of live, you know, uh, energy to it, and kind of push that out there. How to transition. This is a difficult part for me. How to transition from Castle Walls, which is a very, is a very emotionally, contained type of song and extremely slow. And that's part of its magic, is to kind of let that song just, take its time on stage, almost like Pink Floyd, where you're really stretching out the time to kind of let the weight of the song really sink into the audience, and going from that directly into the grand finale. There's a transition there that you have to really make on the fly to kind of pull yourself out of the dream of Castle Walls, and then get the energy right up as high as Come Sail Away, the ending of Come Sail Away, right as we get into grand finale. So I had to remind myself of that.
So you can get lost in the song, even when you're on stage doing this. Can you get lost in the moment, like just listening to the song?
Honestly, yes, you can, and that's that's why I rely on Todd so much. Is that I can get actually, so deeply into it that I forget that I'm in the middle of playing the song, and I'll have to, glance over at Todd. That's why I like having my spinning keyboard. I can look over at him and find exactly where we are in that very moment and pull myself back into the reality of, we're presenting this, the other thing for this tour is that the visuals we have are so compelling that I've found myself a couple of times getting lost in the kind of the overwhelming presentation of it. The screen content, the light show, and all of the atmosphere that's created on stage while we're doing this now is really it's really addictive, quite honestly. And I twice on this tour I found myself kind of going, "Oh, where are we again?" Because I got deep into the show.
And Kevin Cronin with obviously doing High Fidelity is beautiful, but I want to talk about Don Felder because I'll be honest. A couple of years ago, he was here with Brett and they were doing that, the party drop, and I went, "All right, cool. It's going to be Don Felder. We'll hear him do that."
Yeah.
Holy crap, is he good? And it was one of those. You talk about getting mesmerized. I was between the pavilion and the lawn. I was walking somewhere, and I found myself standing there watching the whole set of Don Felder.
Yeah.
He is so talented, and I know that's a stupid thing to say, but my God, he can play.
Well, he's the Eagles, bands of the 70s quite often, we used to refer to them as faceless bands, and they never put a lot of big photos out there, or there might be one photo on an album. I remember seeing the first time I saw the members of Yes was on like their fifth album. I think was Close to the Edge. I began to really see them, and then I went back and saw, oh, they have had a few pictures. But with Don Felder, you know, we had we did a residency in Vegas about 4 years ago where he was like our special guest, and we got to play about 4 or 5 Eagles songs when he would come out and join us on stage. And you begin to realize these are songs that if you've never even owned an Eagles record, or thought you were like on the fence as far as being a fan, whatever, you're going to get sunk so deep into it, as that experience that you had, because this music is in your bones, whether you want it to be or not. It's just been there on planet Earth. It's being played probably as we speak. What would you give?
Somewhere. Oh, yeah,
Somewhere,
yeah.
I would say somewhere like maybe 100 stations, maybe 200 stations in the world right now are playing one of those songs that Don plays every single night. So that's quite an accomplishment. That's quite a saturation of the planet, and how well he still plays.
Yeah.
Is really that will catch your attention every time.
Well, you're playing on stage too, Lawrence. It's amazing what you're doing. Have you had a chance? I know you've been kind of busy with a tour, but to watch the Billy Joel documentary at all?
I haven't yet. I'm looking forward to it. I had a day off yesterday, but we're playing in Toronto tomorrow night, so I'm like going crazy trying to make sure all the guests are in order. But yeah, I can't wait to watch the Billy Joel documentary. He's one of the greatest performers, obviously, of all time. I'm not breaking any news there. I've seen him several times live. The first time was on the Nylon Curtain tour back in 82, 81 or 82. And it was from that day on, I became a devotee to the brilliance of this guy as a songwriter, as an entertainer, as a piano player, and as a lifelong musician who's remained so devoted and dedicated to his to his talent, his craft, whatever you want to call it. But that's been so I can't wait to see it.
You're gonna love it. But especially I thought about you, Lawrence, because the way he dives into his creative process with the piano and talking. Do you talk with the piano sometimes when you're having a conversation with people? Do you wind up just start playing keys? It's easier to kind of explain what you're thinking and doing.
Well, we've had some conversations that are definitely not appropriate even for the internet. Billy Joel, I remember years ago, I don't know if this is in the documentary, but he talks about how hard it is to write songs,
Oh yeah.
to write quality songs, let's call it that. So I have a deep understanding and experience and appreciation for how difficult it is. And, when you hear songwriters say, oh, this came to me in like 20 minutes. Yeah, it's usually 20 minutes plus 20 years of tearing your hair out to get to that point where you can actually come up with something as relevant as Billy Joel has over the years, or as Styx have, or any artist, let's say from the 60s, 70s, whose music is still around and is embraced by people, as fervently today as it ever was. But yes, the conversations I've had with my piano have been both loving. They've been sometimes tranquil and sometimes absolutely triple X rated.
The one song going back to the Grand Illusion, Miss America to me. I remember the first time I was a kid and I dropped a needle on it.
Yeah.
I jumped because it was so like JY was just like, this is a dude who's going to come up to you holding a Budweiser and is going to beat your ass with this song. You know what I mean? It's like, and you meet him, he's a big guy, and JY was like a big old
Yes.
teddy bear, but I would never you'd have to kill him to get in a fight with him. But
J-
it just, that vibe with JY is like, he makes a meal out of that song.
JY is exactly as you described him. He is such a in many ways a mild, very understanding, very emotionally connected to people off stage. And I remember him saying to me years ago, quite often on stage, people will let out that part of their personality that they wish was more prominent in regular life. And I've observed that ever since he said that to me about 25, 26 years ago. And yes, this other creature comes out on stage when
The grin, right? That little grin of his, that is a devilish grin.
he throws himself into it so vehemently, and that other personality comes across, and it's compelling. It's compelling every single night. He still does it. He hits you with it every night. And when particularly I listen to parts, and every night my big JY moments are like when he kicks into Miss America, and secondly when he steps forward and leans into that solo in the middle of Renegade. That's every single night. That's a high point for me. Yeah.
Yeah. It is just, it's so much fun. Lawrence, can't wait for Saturday night with you guys. And I do have one question. I've been talking to more and more band people about this. Your band van, the first vehicle you remember that you guys had to go to your gigs in, what was it? Do you remember?
I do. Yeah, it was a GM. It was a GM van in the 70s. I got it. I got the car loan that my dad co-signed on, and we drove. I'll tell you how long we drove that. We drove that from 1978. All right, right through till the end of my first band, which was in 81. I made my first couple of records and started to tour again in 1985, and still had it. And our tour manager at that time was a guy named Howard Ungerleider, who was the lighting director and laser man for Rush for all these years. And so he was doing lights for us for a little while. And he was also tour managing. We drove that all over North America. I got to open for Tears for Fears on the Song from the Big Chair tour. And by the end of that tour, he referred to that van as the Rustor, meaning the ruster, because it was mostly rust. And there were still some auto parts on it that actually got us across the country. So, that was quite a vehicle. And it saw its fair share of abuse in so many ways from so many guys that passed through that van. And we all made it. So thank you, General Motors.
A fine vehicle. And then the band van, what happened to it?
My dad, what a great question. I came home one day after I was able to afford a new vehicle. I
Yeah.
left it parked at my parents' place, and I came home one day and I said to my dad, "Where's the Russ door? Where's the van?" He goes, "Oh yeah, a couple of boys up around the corner. I like them. They're young lads. They were starting a company. I just gave it to them."
You gave away the restore the van. You
He
can't
gave it
do
away.
that.
He gave it away. And
Oh my God.
I think, well, that's the type of generosity he had with my vehicle.
Well, you keep doing you. And Saturday night at Pine Knob is going to be amazing. We'll be there. I definitely want to take some time to say hi to you, and I appreciate the time, Lawrence. And
Certainly.
just, I'd say have fun on stage, but I've never seen you where you're not having an absolute blast on stage.
We can always do that. And definitely at Pine Knob, that's the top of the bill.
All
Yeah.
right. Hey, we'll talk soon. I'll see you Saturday.
Jim, great to see you again. Cheers.